In August 2013, the Central Intelligence Agency released 407 pages of documents that had been classified for nearly 60 years. The first page contained a simple admission that changed everything. Quote, "The Central Intelligence Agency acknowledges the existence of Area 51." End quote. For 6 decades, the United States government had officially denied that this facility existed. Denied it while commercial satellites photographed it. Denied it while former workers testified about it. Denied it while the entire world could see it on Google Earth. But buried in those 407 pages was something even more extraordinary. The CIA admitted that over half of all UFO sightings between 1955 and 1969 were actually their own secret aircraft, flying at altitudes no one thought possible, carrying cameras that could photograph a newspaper headline from 14 miles up. And that is not speculation. This is what the declassified documents say. The story of Area 51 is not about aliens. It is about the most successful aviation program in American history. A program so secret that it created its own mythology. A program that changed the course of the Cold War and revolutionized modern flight. This is the story the government spent 60 years trying to hide. To understand why Area 51 exists, you have to go back to 1954. Dwight Eisenhower sat in the Oval Office facing a problem that kept him awake at night. The Soviet Union was building nuclear weapons, lots of them. But American intelligence had no idea how many, where they were located, or how advanced Soviet technology had become. Traditional reconnaissance flights over Soviet territory had become suicide missions. Several military aircraft had been shot down attempting to photograph Soviet installations. Pilots were dead or captured. International incidents were escalating. The nuclear arms race was accelerating, but America was flying blind. The National Security Act of 1947 had given the CIA authority to conduct, quote, "such other functions and duties as directed by the National Security Council." That vague language would become the legal foundation for something unprecedented. The CIA was about to become an airline. But not just any airline. They were going to build aircraft that could fly higher than any plane in history. Aircraft that could penetrate the most heavily defended airspace on Earth. Aircraft so advanced that their very existence would be classified at levels higher than the Manhattan Project. There is a growing community of people who believe these stories deserve to be told. If you are one of them, subscribe and join us. The man Eisenhower chose to lead this impossible mission was Richard Bissell, the CIA's deputy director for plans. Bissell was a Yale economist turned spy master. Brilliant, ambitious, and completely ruthless when it came to protecting American interests. On December 1st, 1954, Bissell walked into a nondescript office building in Burbank, California. He was there to meet a man who would change aviation history, Clarence Johnson. Everyone called him Kelly. Kelly Johnson ran Lockheed's Advanced Development Projects unit. He had established it in 1943 with a simple philosophy: small teams, minimal bureaucracy, maximum speed, no interference from corporate management. The unit operated under just 14 basic rules. Rule number 1. The program manager must have complete control of the program in all aspects. Rule number 14. Access to the program must be strictly controlled on a need-to-know basis. Johnson's team had already produced the P-80 Shooting Star, America's first operational jet fighter. They delivered it in 143 days. The Pentagon had asked for it in 180. Johnson's unofficial motto was, "Build it fast, build it right, build it secret." The media would later call his operation Skunk Works, after a reference to the comic strip Lil Abner. But Johnson preferred the official name, Advanced Development Projects. It sounded more serious, more classified. When Bissell explained what the CIA needed, Johnson listened without taking notes. An aircraft that could fly at 70,000 feet, higher than any Soviet interceptor could reach. An aircraft that could carry cameras powerful enough to photograph individual buildings from 14 miles up. An aircraft that could cross the entire Soviet Union without being detected. Oh, and one more thing. They needed it operational in 18 months. Johnson looked at Bissell for a long moment. Then he said, quote, "Give me $26 million and I will have your airplane." End quote. According to the declassified contract documents, Bissell had exactly $22 million in unvouchered CIA funds. Money that Congress did not know existed. Money that would never appear in any budget. Johnson said he would make it work. On November 24, 1954, President Eisenhower signed a top-secret directive authorizing the CIA to develop and operate high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft. The Air Force was cut out entirely. This would be the CIA's airplane, the CIA's program, the CIA's secret. But they would need somewhere to test it, somewhere completely isolated, somewhere already classified, somewhere that did not officially exist. In April 1955, Kelly Johnson and CIA officials climbed into a small aircraft and flew north from Las Vegas. Below them, the Nevada desert stretched endlessly. Rocky mountains, alkali flats, not a single sign of human habitation for miles. They were looking for something very specific, a place where they could test the most advanced aircraft ever built without anyone noticing. A place where sonic booms would not shatter windows, where crashed test flights would not make headlines, where workers could live and work in complete isolation. They found it 90 miles north of Las Vegas, a dried lakebed called Groom Lake, perfectly flat, over 3 miles long, surrounded by mountains on all sides. And here was the crucial detail. It was already inside the Nevada test site, the same restricted airspace where America tested nuclear weapons. The security perimeter already existed. The no-fly zone was already in place. Any civilian aircraft that wandered into the area would be intercepted by military fighters. Johnson looked down at the empty lakebed and made his decision. This would be home. He called it Paradise Ranch. The name was a joke. There were no trees, no grass, no fresh water. Summer temperatures reached 120 degrees. Winter winds howled across the desert at 60 miles per hour. The nearest town was 100 miles away. Workers would live in trailers and temporary buildings. They would work 6 days a week. They would not be allowed to tell their families where they were going or what they were doing. But Johnson knew something about human psychology. If you called it Paradise Ranch, it sounded better than saying you were going to work in the middle of nowhere. The first construction crews arrived at Groom Lake in July 1955. They built runways, hangars, fuel storage tanks, living quarters, all of it temporary, all of it classified, all of it designed to be torn down and removed without a trace when the program ended. The workers called it simply the ranch. According to declassified records, the CIA spent over $8 million preparing the site. That is approximately $80 million in today's money. But they got something priceless in return. A place where impossible aircraft could be built and tested in complete secrecy. A place where the laws of physics could be pushed to their absolute limits. A place that would remain hidden from the world for 60 years. The first aircraft arrived at Groom Lake on July 15, 1955. It came in pieces, shipped in unmarked trucks, assembled by workers who had signed agreements that carried prison sentences for disclosure. The aircraft had no official designation, no serial number, no registration. Internally, Lockheed called it the U-2, but even that name was classified. To everyone else, including most CIA personnel, it was simply the article. August 1st, 1955. Test pilot Tony Levier strapped himself into the cockpit of the U-2 for what was supposed to be a high-speed taxi test. The aircraft was not supposed to fly, not yet. Johnson wanted to test the landing gear, the brakes, the steering. Basic systems. Levier pushed the throttles forward. The unusual aircraft began rolling down the lakebed runway. Faster, faster. At 70 knots, something unexpected happened. The U-2 lifted off. Levier found himself airborne in an aircraft he had never flown before. At an altitude he had not prepared for, with landing gear that was notoriously difficult to control. The U-2 was unlike any aircraft ever built. Its wings were impossibly long and thin, designed for maximum lift at extreme altitude. But those same wings made the aircraft incredibly sensitive to control inputs. At low altitude, it wanted to climb. At high altitude, it wanted to stall. Levier managed to bring the aircraft down after several minutes of unplanned flight. When he climbed out of the cockpit, Kelly Johnson was waiting. Johnson asked how the flight went. Levier replied, quote, "If this thing is supposed to glide, it certainly does not want to." End quote. That accidental first flight revealed something extraordinary. The U-2 was capable of performance that exceeded even Johnson's expectations. Within weeks, test flights reached 40,000 feet, then 50,000, then 60,000. By September, the U-2 was routinely flying above 70,000 feet, higher than any aircraft in history, higher than Soviet interceptors could reach, higher than surface-to-air missiles could target. The cameras were equally revolutionary. Designed by Edwin Land, the inventor of Polaroid photography. The camera system weighed over 400 pounds but could photograph objects as small as a newspaper headline from 14 miles up. The resolution was so precise that CIA analysts could count individual aircraft on Soviet airfields. They could read the numbers on railroad cars. They could identify specific types of missiles and bombers. For the first time since the nuclear age began, America could see exactly what the Soviet Union was building and where they were building it. When did you first learn about this? The operational flights began in June 1956. CIA pilots, borrowed from the Air Force but officially resigned from military service, flew missions over Soviet territory that no military aircraft could survive. The flights revealed that Soviet nuclear capabilities were far less advanced than American intelligence had feared. The bomber gap that politicians had warned about did not exist. The missile gap was mostly Soviet propaganda. The U-2 flights provided the intelligence that allowed American leaders to make rational decisions about nuclear policy instead of reacting to fear and speculation. But there was an unexpected consequence, an unintended side effect that would create one of the most enduring mysteries in American culture. Commercial airline pilots began reporting strange sightings in 1956. Bright silver objects flying at impossible altitudes. Objects that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Objects that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The reports flooded into the Civil Aeronautics Administration. Pilots described aircraft flying at altitudes above 60,000 feet. But according to official records, no aircraft could fly that high. Certainly not American aircraft. The U-2 was classified at levels higher than top secret. Its very existence was compartmentalized under special access programs. Even high-ranking military officers did not know it existed. So when airline pilots reported seeing aircraft at 70,000 feet, air traffic controllers had no explanation. The Federal Bureau of Investigation opened files on the sightings. The Air Force launched Project Blue Book to investigate unidentified flying objects. Newspapers began writing stories about flying saucers and visitors from other planets. The American public became fascinated with UFOs. Books were published, movies were made, conferences were held. An entire mythology developed around the idea that extraterrestrial visitors were observing Earth. And the CIA watched it happen. According to documents declassified in 1997, CIA officials quickly realized that UFO speculation provided perfect cover for their secret aircraft programs. The more people believed in flying saucers, the less likely they were to suspect classified military technology. In 1997, CIA historian Gerald Haynes published a study titled CIA's Role in the Study of UFOs, 1947 to 1990. The study revealed that the CIA had actively encouraged UFO speculation. Quote, "Over half of all UFO reports from the late 1950s through the 1960s were accounted for by manned reconnaissance flights over the United States." End quote. The flights were U-2 missions, and later flights of an even more advanced aircraft called the A-12. The CIA found it easier to let people believe in aliens than to reveal the truth about spy planes. The deception was remarkably effective. For decades, serious researchers who investigated UFO sightings were actually documenting one of the most successful intelligence programs in American history. They were creating detailed records of classified flight tests, but they did not know it. Meanwhile, the real aircraft continued flying missions that changed the course of the Cold War. The U-2 photographed Soviet missile sites in Cuba, leading to the discovery of nuclear weapons that nearly triggered World War III. The aircraft provided intelligence that prevented nuclear conflict and saved millions of lives. But the cost of secrecy was becoming clear. Workers at Area 51 were getting sick. In the 1980s, former Area 51 workers began getting sick. Cancer, respiratory disease, neurological disorders, illnesses that seemed connected to their time at the classified facility. Workers like Robert Frost, who spent 3 years maintaining aircraft at Groom Lake. Frost developed liver cancer at age 57. His doctors could not explain why. Workers like Helen Frost, Robert's widow, who fought for years to get answers about her husband's death. She never got them. Workers described being exposed to unknown chemicals during aircraft maintenance. Solvents that burned their skin. Fumes that made them dizzy. Waste materials that were burned in open pits while workers watched the smoke blow across the base. When workers tried to get medical treatment, they discovered a problem. They could not tell their doctors where they had worked. They could not describe what chemicals they had been exposed to. Everything about their employment was classified. When workers tried to file lawsuits, they hit a wall. The government invoked state secrets privilege, a legal doctrine that allows the government to dismiss cases that might reveal classified information. In 1994, 5 Area 51 workers and 2 widows filed suit against the Environmental Protection Agency and the Air Force. The lawsuit was Casa versus Browner. The workers claimed they had been exposed to toxic chemicals at Area 51. They claimed the government had burned classified materials in open pits, violating environmental laws. They claimed they had a right to know what had made them sick. The government's response was simple. We cannot confirm or deny that this facility exists. President Bill Clinton signed a presidential determination exempting Area 51 from environmental disclosure laws. The workers could not prove they had been harmed because the government would not acknowledge they had worked there. The lawsuit was dismissed. The workers received no compensation, no medical treatment, no acknowledgement that their illnesses might be related to their service to their country. Some of them died while the case was pending. The pattern repeated itself in case after case. Workers who had devoted their careers to developing aircraft that protected American lives found themselves abandoned when they needed protection. The same classification system that had successfully hidden the U-2 program for decades was now being used to hide the human cost of that secrecy. And that brings us to the moment everything shifted. Jeffrey Richelson was a researcher at the National Security Archive at George Washington University. For 15 years, from 1998 to 2013, he filed Freedom of Information Act requests seeking one simple thing: CIA acknowledgement that Area 51 existed. The government response was always the same: we can neither confirm nor deny. Richelson kept filing requests. The CIA kept refusing. But something was changing. The Cold War had ended. The Soviet Union no longer existed. The original justification for extreme secrecy was gone. Commercial satellites had made Area 51 visible to anyone with an internet connection. Google Earth showed the runways, the hangars, the aircraft. The base was hidden in plain sight. In 2005, Richelson filed a new FOIA request. This time, he asked specifically for documents about the U-2 program and a follow-on aircraft called Oxcart. The CIA reviewed the request for 8 years. 8 years of bureaucratic delays. 8 years of negotiations between intelligence agencies and the National Security Archive. 8 years of debate about whether 60-year-old aircraft programs still needed to be classified. On August 15, 2013, the CIA released 407 pages of documents. The cover letter contained a single sentence that ended 60 years of official denial. Quote, The CIA acknowledges the existence of Area 51. End quote. The documents revealed the complete history of the U-2 program, the selection of Groom Lake, the development of revolutionary aircraft technology, the intelligence successes that helped prevent nuclear war. The documents also revealed the A-12 program, an aircraft capable of flying at Mach 3.2 at 85,000 feet, the fastest operational aircraft ever built. The A-12 first flew at Area 51 on April 26, 1962. It was even more classified than the U-2. For 51 years, its existence was completely hidden. But significant portions of the released documents were still redacted. Black bars covered names, locations, technical specifications. Even in acknowledgement, secrecy persisted. The admission raised as many questions as it answered. Why had the government maintained the fiction for so long? What other programs were still hidden at Area 51? What was still happening there today? Commercial satellite imagery shows ongoing construction at Groom Lake. New runways, new hangars, new aircraft. The admission of historical programs did not end the secrecy. It simply drew a line between past and present, between what could be revealed and what must remain hidden. Follow the evidence, not the narrative. The evidence. The documents are clear on this point. Area 51 was never about aliens. It was about aircraft. Aircraft that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Aircraft that changed the course of history. Aircraft that cost billions of dollars and saved millions of lives. And here is the pattern I keep seeing. The same secrecy that enabled revolutionary breakthroughs also enabled abuses of power. The same classification systems that protected national security also protected government officials from accountability. The workers who built these remarkable machines deserved better. They deserved medical care when they got sick. They deserved honest answers about their exposure to hazardous materials. They deserved acknowledgement of their service to their country. Some of them never got it. But their story is finally being told. If you found this investigation compelling, subscribe to join our community of people who believe these stories matter. Leave a comment and let me know. What other classified programs do you think deserve declassification? The truth has a way of surfacing. It just takes time. And sometimes, it takes a researcher who will not give up. Thank you for watching Arthur Lee's Adventures. Until next time.